right, everyone. If I have your attention, my name is Conrad, and thanks for coming to my talk. I just wanted to, well, Cliff Stoll's still here. You know, I was a Unix sysadmin in 1991, and a graybeard said, you have to buy this book, and I did. So I went to Quantum Books in Cambridge, Kendall Square, and bought the book. And in 1993, we got hacked. I was working in Kendall Square. And I knew what to do because I read this. And in addition to all the amazing things Cliff's done, he inspired an entire generation of people like me to do incident handling, to pursue InfoSec. Back in '93, information security wasn't a career. There were no titles, but I pursued it based on that incident. And that was a pretty good decision 26 years later. So thank you, Cliff. I was talking to Cliff before the talk, and he was kind enough to give some of us speaking advice. And he said, make it personal. And so I did, actually, before I talked to him. One of the reasons I'm here is because, well, they existed. So my great-grandfather, Highland Conrad, was born in Lunenburg and emigrated to Boston in 1897. I don't have a picture of Highland. That's my great-grandmother, Delia. And I discovered my Atlantic-Canadian roots a few years ago. The story was always German Catholic, German-Irish, rather. And I was a weird kid in South Boston with a German name. But I researched it, and I traced it back. It was Germany, 1700s, Lunenburg, 1896 Boston. And so we began visiting Atlantic Canada, discovering our Atlantic Canadian roots. And now my son, Eric, is attending Dalhousie University. He's the first Conrad from my branch to actually return and live in Canada. So it's awesome to be here, and thanks for having me here. Oh, and after Cliff gave me that advice, he stole my coffee, he drank it, and then he complained I didn't put sugar in it, okay? So oh, he also said PowerPoint is poison, so get ready for some poison. All right. So it's a fast-paced talk. My website's ericconrad.com. I once had someone say, Eric, I couldn't write down all the things you were saying. You were talking too fast. And my answer is, yeah, that's right. So go to ericconrad.com. I just uploaded it last night. And just like Cliff did back in the day, you want to detect the wily hacker, right? How do you detect the wily hacker? Most networks are built for operations, not security. I also like what Cliff said. It's like security goes hand in hand with proper operations. Well-run networks are secure networks, right? So I'm going to cover a number of things now on how to better configure your network to detect that wily hacker, starting with command line auditing. So one of the best things you can do is turn on this event, 4688, the Windows security event log. You already have 4688 right now, but you don't have the command line auditing. Command line auditing shows you every single command the hacker typed, much like Cliff saw in his teletypes back in the day, right? And, sorry. That sound okay? Yeah? Okay. And thank you. So if you want every command the attacker types, you turn this thing on. And it's 2 GPO settings, and you see every single command that the hacker types now. And then if I had one event to put in my SIM and my SOC, it's this event, 4688 command line auditing. I want more than one event, but if I only get one, I want this one, right? A lot of SOCs aren't looking at this event. I want, for log sources, in a Windows environment, I want 2 log sources. I want 4688, well, Windows event logs, and I want DNS as well. We'll talk about DNS logging in a bit. So once you've turned on command line auditing, what do you look for? Really long commands, over 1,000 bytes, right? Run DLL32, which is a way to inject DLLs into RAM. VBS scripts. Now, of course, not all VBS scripts are malicious, but some are. Anything running out of a temp folder. PowerShell launched by CMD. Is it common for a hacker to type, or for one of your admins to type, open a terminal and type PowerShell.exe inside that terminal? That's not normal at all. Very common malware approach. Also, base64 encoded commands. PowerShell. PowerShell is amazing. Most of the post-exploitation frameworks have now moved onto PowerShell. Most of the intelligent malware is using PowerShell to move. What it's doing is it's living off the land. We call those lol bins, by the way, living off the land binaries. If I'm a hacker and I install malicious software on your system, your antivirus, etc., is designed to stop that. But if instead of installing a malicious software, I simply use commands that are already there, I live off the land, I'm much more likely to be successful and not be detected, right? So PowerShell is amazing. And PowerShell natively, well, PowerShell 2, which is Windows 7, has no logging for our purposes, no useful logging. PowerShell 4 and 5 add a lot more logging. Oh, by the way, Windows 7's end of life in January, so TikTok if you still have Windows 7, no more patches as of January. So I recommend you upgrade any Windows 7 systems to PowerShell 5 or higher and turn on PowerShell auditing, because most malware is now using PowerShell. Well, most of the advanced malware, I should say. And natively, even on PowerShell 5 Plus, there's no logging turned on by default, but you can turn that on. Now, Sysmon is amazing. Sysmon is from Sysinternals by Mark Rasinovich. That's a company that was acquired by Microsoft a number of years ago. And Sysmon, there's a saying I like by Brandeis, of Brandeis University fame. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, right? Sunlight is the best disinfectant. You have to know what you don't know. You have to avoid the blind spots. And Sysmon gives you some of that visibility. It's from Microsoft. You download it from Microsoft.com. Of course, it's just not installed natively. And it gives you, it logs in Windows Event Log format, which your SIM can now ingest very nicely. And it gives you some critical visibility to malware that you normally lack. In fact, the kind of visibility you normally need, like a Tanium or a Carbon Black or a Sentinel-1, one of these advanced endpoint protection suites, heuristic things, right? But it gives you that kind of intense visibility, like, for instance, WMI. So NotPetya was a piece of malware that's caused over $10 billion US in damage, 10 billion with a B. There's a great Wired magazine article on Maersk, the shipping company Maersk. You've probably seen their containers on ships in Halifax Harbor here, right? And it blew up their entire Active Directory infrastructure. It nuked every AD controller on the planet except for one. It turns out there was a power outage in Ghana. In Ghana, there was a power outage, and they had one Active Directory controller offline out of all their global network. Everyone else got nuked. And NotPetya, some people call it ransomware. It's not actually ransomware. It's destructive malware. It simply destroys your data. If you don't have backups, it's gone, right? And so by an act of God, there was a power outage in Ghana, and there was one AD controller offline through an act of God. So they called down to Ghana, and they said, unplug it now before the power comes back, because when the power comes back, if it's plugged in, it's over. Pull the disk, fly to London. Due to a visa issue, they couldn't fly to London. They had to fly to Nigeria. Someone from London had a meet in Nigeria. They met in the middle, grabbed the disk, flew back, and they recovered their global AD infrastructure from that set of disks. They had 18-wheelers backed up miles. It crippled the company. They fell back to paper pencil to track all of those containers, right? And one of the things, so if you Google Wired magazine, Maersk, M-A-E-R-S-K, you'll see that story. And one of the things it did, it moved to WMI, WMIC. One of the things NotPetya did is interesting. We talked about malware for years. We talked about how dumb most malware was. Like you had the configure worm 10 years ago. And the configure worm would infect the box, scan for more, infect them, scan for more, infect those. If you're missing a patch, MS-08067, bang, you're it. And I remember back then saying, wow, that's dumb. That's not how a pen tester works, right? A pen tester doesn't simply exploit. A pen tester will break into one box, steal credentials, use a tool called Mimikatz to dump plain text passwords. Windows 8 and previous has plain text passwords in RAM. They're encoded, but they're not encrypted. And steal those and move laterally. So there's an old saying, what you call hacking, I call logging in, right? I'll just log in. I'll steal credentials and log in. So 10 years ago, configure, 1,000 boxes, 2 unpatched, 2 went down. NotPetya, 1,000 boxes, 2 unpatched, all 1,000 go down. If you made a series of mistakes with credentials and things like that, if you've manually synchronized your local admin passwords, for example, made other mistakes. So WMI it moved to WMI. It accessed remote systems through WMI and PSExec. And WMI had no logging whatsoever of any use to us in a SOC, right? You install Sysmon. Weeks after that, they added WMI logging specifically because of NotPetya. So you've added that visibility, that sunlight you need in your network. Sysmon's a wonderful tool. And built on top of Sysmon, I wrote a tool called Deep Wipe. So one of the things Sysmon can give you is the SHA-256 hash is one example of every process running on every Windows system, your entire network. This is powerful. So it turns your Windows network into a massively distributed application-aware IDS. You can see every single hash of every single process for free, right? This scales well globally. Microsoft runs this tool globally. And I thought, why don't I grab that hash and upload a VirusTotal. VirusTotal runs like 65 odd antivirus checks, right? And for free, they have a free API key, and you can send one hash every 15 seconds for free. Free isn't beer, free as we say, Unix nerds like to say, right? And if you have more than one hash submitted, just queues them 15 seconds. You can actually buy more access from VirusTotal, but the free version works pretty well. So I wrote that tool. And there's an old Unix saying as well, if you typed it twice, you should have scripted it once. And having done this manually more than twice, I can tell you that, I scripted it once. And so it takes the process of copy-pasting that SHA-256 256 hash, excuse me, from sysmon, pasted a virus total, hit enter, right? I've done that dozens of times manually. So I took my own advice and I wrote a tool called Deep White. And it's been very, very effective. And the way Deep White works is you take like your Windows 10 install image, you grab the SHA-256 hash of all that, that's one PowerShell command. That's your whitelist. If Deep White sees a hash that wasn't on that list, it looks it up, tells you whether it's malicious or not. And once it's looked it up once, it won't look it up again unless you tell it to, right? So I wrote that tool for DerbyCon about 1.5 years ago. And, piece of advice, if you get one hit, don't freak out. If you get a lot of hits, the top one, yeah, freak out. You get one hit, don't freak out too much. I ran this on, I teach for SANS, I'm a SANS fellow, and I've written a number of classes for SANS. And I ran this tool on the Windows 10 VM. We've handed out to thousands of students in Security 511. When I saw that hit, I started hyperventilating and panicking because I thought I just infected thousands of students because I handed them an affected VM. And I thought I'd have to change my name and leave the country and fail. And I calmed down, like, well, one hit, sometimes, especially if it's not signed, the vendors will crank the heuristics up all the way and get false positive. So one hit, investigate, don't freak out. A lot of hits, maybe you want to freak out. Don't freak out. All right, DNS. So DNS, again, in a Windows environment, the first log source I want is Windows event logs. The second log source I want is DNS. Most people use DNS for correlation purposes, which is fine. I want DNS for threat hunting, hunting down that wily hacker. Threat hunting is the presumption of compromise actionized, right? The presumption of compromise is all networks come pre-owned. Every network's owned right now. All defenders should defend that way, right? All networks come pre-owned, and then you hunt to find them, hunt them down, right? So DNS makes a great threat hunting source, right? And some of the things you want to look for, the easiest telltale sign is hundreds of thousands of lookups .something on the internet. Like you look up www.google.com, you look up files.google.com, you look up maps.google.com, you don't look up 1,000 things.google.com. 1,000 things.something is a telltale sign of malware using DNS tunneling, right? Here's Zeus botnet. And so I was on a threat hunt, and a third-party threat hunt, and I asked them for data, logs, I need logs. And it was one of these places with lots of red tape, and like, well, fill out an account requisition form, we'll talk about that on Thursday, and it's like Monday, and I'm leaving Friday morning. And I'm stuck in a queue with no data. If they put me in a queue with nothing to do, I'll lose my mind. I go hunting around for anyone who'll give me data. I find an old Unix graybeard. I ask him if he has any data, any logs. He's like, well, I run DNS. I'm like, great, DNS. I want those logs. Can you turn on logging? He did. And I saw this. This is the 1,293rd thing this thing looked up. It looked up 0.pf.zones.com, looked up, meaning it's communicating back and forth. 1.pf.zones.com, 2.pf, ... 12,192.pf.zonesnos.com. Now, what most vendors do is say, oh, zonesnos.com, you're evil. We're going to blacklist you, right? That's called whack-a-mole. Because today it's zonesnos.com, and 8 hours later it's zonesnof.com, and 8 hours later it's zonesnod with a d.com, and we can play this game all day long, and you're going to fail, right? So instead of blacklisting things, look for, behavioral things, like thousands of lookups, and that, by the way, is XOR encoded, then base 64 encoded traffic, right? So for me, it's the ideal C2 channel. Now, C2 stands for command and control. Way to maintain a communication channel. The way the bot herder controls the botnet, right? That's called C2. It's a military term. DNS is the ideal C2 channel because it's allowed and it's ignored. It's like a utility. People treat DNS like electricity. It's working or it's not. It's resolving or not. And it's allowed outbound even on lockdown networks. I had a company tell me, Eric, we have no internet connectivity from this host. And I sit down and I type nslookup, google.com, I get an answer. That's bidirectional internet connectivity, right? Like, yeah, Eric, but that's via forwarder. Well, a DNS forwarder is the DNS proxy. We don't think of them that way, but they are, right? And so if I can send something.google.com, and Google's primary name server gets that and sends a response, that's bidirectional communication, regardless of how many forwarders that goes through, right? So to give an example of some of the advanced tunneling that both penetration testers and malware use, a tool called Iodine. You could tunnel any IPv4 protocol via DNS. You could tunnel SSH, you could tunnel IPSEC, you could tunnel RDP, you could tunnel whatever you want, right? Here's what it looks like. It looks very, very odd, right? Very, very odd. Oh, by the way, pro tip, null records. I've configured DNS. My first domain I configured zone was 1991, says old man Conrad. And I never heard of null records, right? I don't know what a null record was. It's an experimental format that's been there since the beginning. Any binary data transferred via DNS. I had no idea you could transfer binary data via DNS until I saw that. So if you want to set up DNS tunneling, buy a domain. Actually, this is my son's domain I stole. eej.me. That's Montenegro had a $1 sale one day. So I decided to channel my inner bot herder and get some really short domains. And you see I'm looking up hundreds or thousands of things, .eej.me, using these big binary records. So pro tip, block detect null records. On Windows DNS, there's a button you can click. On bind, you have to set up what's called an RPZ, a response policy zone, okay? And this is a long way of saying somebody looked up 138 things.3.eej.me. That's very strange. So I'm simply, what this command is doing is trimming off the thing before the first dot. How many things are left that are unique, right? And 3.eej.me falls out, right? 138 lookups. That's not communication. That's not resolution. That's communication. One thing we looked at in Security 511 was, how do I know when a string was randomly generated? Like entropy, a cryptographic term, it means disorder, right? And if I want to know a string, because there's a thing called domain generation algorithms I'm going to show you shortly, where it's random name.something.something, random name.something.something. How do I detect random name.something.something? I thought, hey, this is easy, ent. The good old ent command, right? Unix has ent and Linux has ent built in. It calculates the Shannon entropy, right, the disorder. And I thought this is easy, but if I do 26 letters and 10 numbers, which is how a lot of malware communicates, that's 36 out of 256 ASCII values. 36 out of 256 is not high entropy. I'm not using most of ASCII. If most of ASCII is being unused, the entropy is actually low. It's orderly per cryptographer. So we looked at it, and I thought it was easy, and we totally failed, because I want a script to detect that randomly generated thing, and we simply failed. Luckily, I know a lot of smart people, right? So we asked Mark. Mark's an expert Python coder. Mark, can you write like a script to figure out this thing's randomly generated, and don't use ent, that's a waste of time. He goes, oh yeah, ent would be a total waste of time. He knew that off the top of his head, of course. I didn't. And clickety, 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 click. 15 minutes later, freak.py. Really smart. So you feed it used to be the Alexa top million as a corpus. You find a corpus of data that's normal, right? So you feed it a corpus of normal data. If you look at a DNS, you feed it the Alexa top million. They used to be for free. That was the top million websites. Now they took a commercial, but Cisco Umbrella, which does open DNS, they made their top million available for free. So the top million DNS names resolved, right? That's your corpus. Feed it that. And then it says, okay, what are the odds that one character will follow another in a DNS name? It doesn't have to be just DNS. It could be exe names, function names, DLL names, whatever, right? And what are the odds that Q is followed by W in English? Or Q is followed by Z? No, Q is normally followed by U. So give it a corpus. It'll calculate the odds of one character following another. And if that's low enough, it'll say, hey, this is odd. This is unusual per the corpus you gave me. You told me these are the top million DNS names. This is weird, right? Trying to catch this. That's a domain generation algorithm at work. So it looks up something .pl, randomly generated .pl, randomly generated .su, randomly generated .ru, Russia, of course, right? Because the vendors are saying, oh, zonesnos.com is evil. Well, what if I generate 50 names every 8 hours? I'll generate 50 names every 8 hours. I'll pick one of them. I'll register just that one. Then 8 hours later, a new 50 list. 8 hours later, a new list of 50. The bot and the botnet both know the next set of names coming up, right? So they're constantly churning through names in order to make whack-a-mole pointless, right? So generating lists of things like this that change every 8 hours, is pointless. But if we just say, hey, per the corpus of data you gave me, these names look weird, unlikely per normal DNS, that's very effective. It's not just DNS, it could be thread names, it could be file names, workstation names, service names, on and on, right? So does it scale, everyone wants to know. Yeah. So the little Python script, Justin Henderson tried to throw 500,000 lookups per second at it. 500,000 lookups per second. And needless to say, the little Python script exploded, into a billion pieces. And so we reached out to Mark, said, can we do this at scale? Can you make like a service? Like I send it a string and it gives me a number. Like listen on TCP port 10,000 or something. I send a string, it sends me a number very quickly. Sure. This scales to 500,000 per second. It's running at a nearly 1,000 node WAN site. It scales. And when Justin turned this on this nearly 1,000 node WAN site, he found 3 pieces of malware instantly. By just those names look weird, is all that was. Many incidents have been launched by, hey, that's weird. Hey, there's a 757 accounting error. That's odd, Cliff. Go look at it. How many incidents have been launched by, hey, that's weird? Lots of them, right? So I stumbled into this. That's not YouTube, by the way. That's not the YouTube you know, right? And what I like about this career, it's never boring, not for long. There's always something new to get owned by, or a new technique to get hit with, new technique to learn. Commit yourself to a career of constant learning as I have, right? So that's not YouTube. That's not the YouTube you know, right? Why? The O is not an ASCII O, it's like a Cyrillic O. DNS now supports internationalized domain names, right? Meaning Unicode. Unicode in DNS. So Unicode, English fits neatly in ASCII. ASCII, as I mentioned, has 256 values. But what if I want Cyrillic and kanji and emojis and everything else? That's not all going to fit in ASCII. There's too many human languages and character sets to do that. So you have 2-byte Unicode, which is 2 characters to display 1. 4-byte Unicode, 4 characters to display 1. And it turns out Cyrillic has some letters that are different, but some letters that are exactly the same as US English, pixel by pixel. You can also buy the X509 cert for this. You can get an SSL cert for it because you own that domain. Because that O is not an ASCII O, it's a different O. Now, if you saw this email come across your email, would you click on it? I probably would. I'd fall for that trick. That's nasty. That is just nasty. That's just not fair, right? So the attackers are now weaponizing this stuff. And they're telling you it's from bankofamerica.com. And it's bankofamerica.com, but the O is a Cyrillic O. And they buy a cert for that thing as well. And you get an email, or your boss gets an email, or your CFO gets an email from Bank of America with a Cyrillic O. They go to the website, they've cloned the website, there's a fraud alert in your accounts, please log in. You can see how this goes, right? You have to protect your users against this because most users will fall prey to this. So that's what it looks like. It's interesting how browsers treat that. That's apple.com, but it's not apple.com because it's a different L. It's not an English L, it's not an ASCII L, it's a different L. By default, Chrome shows you it's called Punycode. Chrome shows you the Punycode. Firefox today, by default, shows you the O. It looks totally normal. So if I said, hey, there's a fraud alert on your Apple account, your iTunes account, please log in, and you're using Firefox, by default, you're in big trouble, right? You're in big trouble. You can change all this stuff, right? So I recommended your company, even in your house, you check out these settings. Again, this talk's online. I know I'm hitting you with a lot of data, believe me, I know. I like giving talks fast and furious, that's my style. I'd rather say more than less, that's how I roll, right? But ericconrad.com, first hit, you can download it right now, okay? And these are the settings here for changing the behavior, especially of Firefox. Chrome does a good job with this. Firefox, not so much. So how do I detect that someone's cloned my domain? We call these cousin domains, right? I remember I had a client, it was johnsonaccounting.com, right? What was the actual CPA firm they used, johnsonaccounting.com. They start getting emails from johnsonaccountant.com, right? And so your CPA is Fred at johnsonaccounting.com. Now you get an email from Fred at johnsonaccountant.com, right? They've also cloned the Johnson Accounting website. The email footer is Fred's actual email footer copied, but it's not Fred at johnsonaccounting.com, it's Fred at johnsonaccountant.com. These are much more targeted attacks. This is called spear phishing or whale hunting, you know? How do you programmatically detect that? Because one thing I've learned, layer 8 is always going to fail. Layer 8 is the unofficial OSI model layer, above 7, the person, right? That's layer 8. And you can give users a hard time about making mistakes. You can do all the security awareness you want to do, but at the end of the day, people will make mistakes. That's our nature. And instead of saying, okay, we'll just try harder, we'll have more awareness, how about we build better defenses, right? How about we build better defenses? How about we program for that failure? Like there was a famous plane crash last year, so a plane accident. Southwest Airlines, right? Engine explodes. Shrapnel shoots through the window of the engine, blows the window open, and a woman's pulled halfway out the plane, right? And the plane begins an emergency descent, and all the oxygen masks drop, right? and someone took a picture of the oxygen mask, and everyone has it on wrong. Everyone has it on below their nose, right? Like everyone you can see in that picture, it's below their nose. People started saying, hey, you should listen to the pre-flight video, the safety video, come on. They were blaming the users. I'm like, I'm blaming the engineer who designed that cup. Because if it's a perfectly round cup, you'll put it over your mouth. If you made a little notch where the nose goes, you'll put that notch over your nose. So yes, we have responsibility to be more careful and listen to the pre-flight safety video, but how about we engineer better systems that are more resilient, that are lowering the chances that they'll make a mistake or how costly that mistake will be. So DNS twist, what you do with DNS twist is, as your users are surfing the web, you're calculating how likely the names they're going to are like names you care about, like ericconrad.com. Not that that's a high-value target you could steal on my talks. They're free anyways, right? But if someone wanted to clone ericconrad.com, right, and like take out one of the C's, instead of Eric Conrad, CC, Eric Onrad, right, and use that as a cousin domain, we call that, right? Could it tell the user to be more careful? Yes. Will they still make mistakes? Enough will, let's be honest, right? So how about we programmatically detect that through DNS twist? And you see names that are very likely the names you care about. Now, the names you care about will be different than the names I care about, perhaps. Either block it or alert, or warn the user, tell the SOC, etc. Here's how you turn on DNS query logging on Windows 2008, 2012. And DNS analytical logging on Windows 2012 R2 Plus now. They've actually vastly improved it. The old method was plain text, local file plain text, not ideal. The new method is actual, honest to goodness, Windows event log forwarding, plays nicely with your SIM, et cetera, et cetera. Here's how you do it on Bind 9 as well. All right, client-to-client traffic. Is it normal for a client to send unicast traffic, meaning one-to-one, to another client? Not really. Like on a Windows, there are exceptions, we'll talk about that. But on a Windows network, if you turn a bunch of Windows PCs on, they'll start chatting with each other over like net bias broadcast. They'll start sending broadcast traffic to each other. But they won't actually talk unicast to each other unless you have a couple of use cases which we'll talk about. What you want to do now is kill the pivot. The pivot is when one system is infected, right? One user clicks on an email, johnsonaccountant.com comes in, they click on it, it's a cousin domain, and now there's malware on that box. But often the first box a pen tester or malware hits is not the box of interest, it's just the foothold. It's the beachhead, you're behind that first firewall. You're behind enemy lines, right? And you want to move further. So you've achieved the first goal, which is get behind that first firewall, but the real goal is, say, steal the crown jewels. The crown jewels probably aren't on the system you hit, right? It's someplace else. So you start pivoting. You start moving laterally from one system to another, right? And you know, also with malware, NotPetya, if you've manually synchronized your local admin password, 10,000 clients, kiss them all goodbye. They're all going away, right? So is it normal for clients to talk to clients? There are some use cases I'll cover, but it's not normal. Good hotels have what's called station isolation. Station isolation says room 1342 can't talk to room 1343. Do I want the person next door scanning me or infecting me? No, of course not. I don't want to talk to any other room in that hotel. I want to reach the internet. So a good wireless network has station isolation. Don't let clients talk to clients. Clients only talk to their switch, their default gateway, etc. So if that's a good idea on a wireless network, why not do it wired? Now, what cases do we have when clients talk to clients? You know, how might this be difficult to pull off? Well, if you have a poorly designed network, you're mixing clients and servers in the same VLAN, virtual LAN, that's going to break it. Because you want to have a private VLAN. The private VLAN says clients don't talk to clients. Clients only talk to a, quote, promiscuous port, which is the default gateway. You turn that on and you've intermingled clients and servers, you're obviously going to break the servers. But don't intermingle clients and servers. Have server networks and client networks. You want at least 3 types of networks. IT clients, non-IT clients, and servers. And then the non-IT clients, they can't talk to each other. IT's accepted, obviously, because they have to administer boxes, right? And does anything violate that rule? Does anything go client to client? Sure. Some audio-video stuff. Some commercial products like Tanium send peer-to-peer updates. Windows has this crazy delivery optimization mode where clients send patches to other clients. That's not designed for the enterprise network. That's designed for ad hoc work groups, we call them, you know. At the end of the day, I don't care if you block at layer 2, which is a private VLAN, or layer 3.4, which is a host-based firewall. I want to stop clients from talking to clients. One of the things your company may want to pursue is zero trust networking. Zero trust networking is, it used to be the old days, outside's evil, inside's trusted, right? The perimeter. Well, the perimeter's dead now, right? The perimeter's quite dead. So instead of saying outside evil, inside's good, everything's potentially evil, until proven otherwise, right? And zero trust, Google has now pursued zero trust globally. Google is subject to intense nation-state scrutiny, Let me move this down a little bit. They're subject to intense nation-state scrutiny. World governments want to hack Google. Who would want all your Gmail and all your Google Maps history that your phone tracks in a very stalkerish way, right? What nation state wouldn't want that? So nation states are constantly trying to hack into Google because there's all kinds of data in Google, right? So if they're pursuing a technology globally that's expensive and hard to pull off, you should pay attention because they know what it's like to be in the receiving end, right? And zero trust is nothing's trusted till proven. Inside, outside doesn't matter. And that's tough to pull off. That may seem very intimidating. However, if you stop clients from talking to clients, you made a huge leap forward for a fairly simple change that your users probably won't even notice, right? Also, one killer feature of your host-based firewall is blocking by application. Man, turn this on. Most firewalls block at layer 3 and layer 4, which is IP addresses and ports, right? We've done that for literally decades. Since around 1989, we've had firewalls like that, right? IP addresses and ports. The Windows firewall, built in free, and most commercial host-based firewalls can also block by application, right? So instead of blocking port protocol, keep doing that, block by app. How often does a secretary PowerShell remote out of his or her own PC? How often does a secretary use PSExec or WMIC? I mentioned WMIC when I talked about NotPetya, the $10 billion strain of ransomware, right? Or, sorry, destructive malware. So you should again, you have 3 types of networks at least, maybe more. Servers, IT clients, non-IT clients. And the rule for non-IT clients is block alert on all of these. Because if you do that, I'm a pen tester, and I pull up the JohnsonAccountants.com trick, I do a cousin domain, the first thing I'm gonna try to do is move laterally using one of these tools. So if you have the Windows firewall block and alert on any attempt from non-IT clients to use this, you'll catch me in seconds. My pen test will be over literally in seconds because your SOC will know you'll be hunting me down. Microsoft talks about this a lot. I've got to know some folks at Microsoft. I just spent some time at the Blue Team Summit last week. And I love the new look Microsoft. They are drinking the Kool-Aid, man. They've turned that company around from a security standpoint. And when a large customer there is infected, has an incident, they'll hop on a plane and fly out there. You're a Fortune 500, you spend a lot of money with Microsoft. When you have a massive incident, they'll fly someone out, an expert on whatever just happened to you, and the technologies that was used to make that happen. And I talked to some folks at Microsoft, like, Eric, every single time, every single incident, the built-in functionality they already paid for would have both prevented and detected it had they simply turned it on. Simply turned it on. Oh, by the way, they looked at Azure, Microsoft Cloud stuff. 2 years ago, only 0.7% of administrators had multi-factor authentication. 0.7% of admins use multi-factor authentication in Azure, right? A year later, it was 1.7%. So the needle's moving, but not fast enough, right? Multi-factor authentication is built in. It takes whole swaths of attacks off the table. When you call hacking, I call logging in. I mean that. Most hacks are just logging in. That's all it really is. Pen testing's easy. The dirty secret of penetration testing, it's easy. Blue team, the defense, that's the hard stuff. Pen testing's easy. I can make 100 mistakes and still beat you as a pen tester. As a defender, one mistake might do me in. It might, right? So I've talked to people at Microsoft like, Eric, every major hack you've read about in the paper, they're a big Microsoft shop, we flew in. Every single time they could have prevented and detected had they simply used built-in functionality like this. All right, my last section is gonna be on something I love to do. A little wizardry from the past I picked up. This is the kind of thing like Unix people from the 90s learned to do. And it's kind of this bit of lost art, right? A darknet. So the term darknet's been co-opted by Tor hidden nodes and the dark web and Silk Road. That's not what I mean by darknet. Darknet is unrouted IP space. IP space you either own or is contiguous or near you, the space you're using, that you're not using, right? So I'm using 192.168.1.something, .2.something, and .3.something, and that's it, right? And that's private space. That's called RFC 1918 space. Request for comments. The private addresses you then NAT to the internet. They're not routed on the internet. You're using internally now 192.168.1.0 through 255, 2.0 through 255, 3.0 through 255, right? And you're ignoring the rest, you're not routing it. I'm saying route everything else near that to a darknet router, and then just count it, right? And why? Malware likes to scan. Pen testers like to scan. We love scanning, right? You break in, you start scanning, right? And if you're using 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and 4.0, I'm probably going to scan 192.168.0.0 through 192.168.255.255. That's what I want to do. What else have you got? What else is there? So kick off that scan. Most companies won't notice. On an IDS, intrusion detection system, the first rules that are disabled are the scanning rules, the port scanning rules, because they're so noisy, there's so many false positives, right? So much of that's just noise. So we turn it off. Instead of turning that off, route that space to a darknet router, right? And then simply count what goes there, right? Simply count what goes there. This is the witty worm. The witty worm discovered by a darknet router. The witty worm is one of the most destructive worms in internet history. It was nasty. It was a nasty piece of work. Most worms, well, Petya changed this. NotPetya changed this. Until NotPetya, most worms were breeders, not warriors. They spread, they didn't fight. When they took down networks, it wasn't intentional, it was just bad design. They just spread, or good design, I guess. They spread so quickly, they just overwhelmed stuff, right? And so, but they didn't normally destroy. That's changed more recently. But witty was a while back. It attacked firewalls, black ice firewalls, which by their nature are internet facing. And you can see the explosion of traffic there. It was a one-packet UDP attack, UDP, which is nasty. And most worms follow what's called the inverted hockey stick growth pattern. One worm segment, that's the formal name, becomes 2, 2 become 4, 4 become 8, 8 becomes 16. And eventually the map explodes. But it starts relatively slowly, then geometrically flies up. Whoever created this worm scanned the internet for black ice firewalls, found 10,000, and preceded 10,000 at once. This is nasty. So instead of 1 becoming 2, becoming 4, becoming 8, 10,000 became 20,000, became 40,000. Within hours, every black ice firewall was infected. And here's how it actually worked. It had 2 cycles. One cycle would be spread. The second cycle would be chew up blocks in the disk. Spread, destroy data, spread, destroy data, spread, destroy data. Because if it simply blew a firewall up right away, it wouldn't spread. It's kind of like a human pathogen. If a human pathogen killed everyone instantly, it wouldn't spread because people wouldn't be around to spread it. So it has to kind of injure you, but let you stumble around a bit, you know? That's what most good pathogens do, right? And spread it. Typhoid Mary, right? Black Plague. So they tuned it well. They wanted to blow up those firewalls, but not too quickly, not too slowly, just right. And it was first detected by a darknet router. So we had, our internal audit team was fond of dropping unannounced penetration tests on us. I used to work for a hospital chain in Boston. I was the HIPAA security officer. That's Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act in Boston, right? And the internal audit team loved to hire unannounced pen tests. And so my team of incident handlers, we'd handle these incidents not knowing it was actually good guys firing at us. We thought it was bad guys. And so our darknet router, the rule was if darknet traffic doubles, you let us know. Because you might be thinking there's no darknet traffic. On the internet, there's plenty. Worms are scanning, but I'm talking internally now, internally. Internally, you might have darknet traffic. Why? Layer 8, I mentioned that term. People make mistakes, wrong net mask, wrong gateway, I fat-fingered an IP, wrong domain name, whatever, right? So you see some of that stuff, and we were trying to fix that stuff, but it was a little steady hum of that kind of stuff, right? But the rule was, if darknet traffic doubled, wake someone up, right? So if darknet traffic doubles, wake someone up. 3 a.m., my incident handler got woken up. There was a 10,000% increase in darknet traffic on our network, right? He rolls out of bed. He finds a PC and a guard shack scanning our entire, what's called a Class B, 65,536 addresses. That's a Class B. We were using a few hundred of them, actually, or a few thousand. But they were trying to scan 65,536 addresses, all the addresses nearby the ones we were using. From a guard shack. Guard clicked on the phishing email, right? And within 60 seconds, the incident handler was awake. Within 10 minutes, the incident was contained. So within 10 minutes, the incident was contained, right? And I get to work the next morning, and the internal audit team calls me, and they said, okay, Conrad, who told you about the pen test? Who warned you? Who gave you the heads up? Because someone clearly told you. I'm like, no one told us. Well, the darknet router told us. And they thought I was lying because they couldn't see how it was humanly possible to catch malware that quickly. The Big Four accounting firm comes in to do their reveal. And as a pen tester, I had shell for 10 minutes, then I lost it forever. You're a sad pen tester, let me tell you that. That's the worst feeling in the world. If that happened to me 10 years later, I'd still be wincing over it. To have shell for 10 minutes and lose it forever, that's an awful feeling, meaning we're winning, they're losing. So the Big Four accounting firm comes in, they're all wearing nice suits. 3 pen testers, each billing $250 US an hour. So $750 collectively to hear me talk, right? We're still paying them as I'm telling them how they failed. And they said, we don't understand what happened. I said, well, my darknet router caught you, right? And they said, your darknet what? You what? What? Never heard of it, didn't know it. And I described what we were doing to them, and they were like, that is magic. It's magic that's very inexpensive, actually. It's cheap magic. All you need is a router. You already have a router, right? You already have a router. Forward the packets to that router, and you can simply count them there through SNMP and drop, or if you want to be a little more advanced, send to a packet vacuum. So send that to a packet vacuum, something like Security Onion, an IDS. What will you see? You'll see a whole bunch of TCP sins and no ACKs. The handshake's begun but not finished. So TCP data there's no data, just sin, synchronized. UDP, you see the full packet. ISMP, you see the full packet, right? Super useful bit of old network wizardry that I rarely see in the wild. I want to share with you. All right, looks like I hit the mark. That's my talk, folks. You want to download this talk, that's ericconrad.com. You want to come see me at SANS, I'll be see you at SANS or anywhere else. I'll hang around for questions, and thanks for having me, folks. It's good to be home. Thank you. Thank you.